Welcome to the Turd Nerds. We are the functional gastroenterology podcast discussing all things poop. Before we take the plunge into today's episode, let us tell you a bit about ourselves. I'm Dr. Rebecca Sand, a naturopathic physician and acupuncturist, and I specialize in all things gastroenterology, hormones, and fertility.
I'm Dr. Ami Kapadia, and I'm a medical doctor trained in family medicine and functional medicine with a special interest in gastrointestinal health, food and environmental allergies, and autoimmune disease.
And I'm Dr. Ilana Gurevich, a naturopathic physician and acupuncturist who is board certified in naturopathic gastroenterology. I specialize in inflammatory bowel disease, IBS, and other functional digestive disorders. Let's jump into today's episode.
The following discussion is for educational purposes only and not intended to diagnose or treat any diseases or conditions. Please consult your doctor before incorporating any of this information into your care. The information presented on this podcast is not medical advice.
All right, I hope everyone is ready for Enzymes Part 2. We're going to start talking about plant-based enzymes with Dr. Gurevich.
So, big recap. When you're on your, support or your website and you're looking for supplements, or you're at the store and you're looking for supplements, you have literally 1,000 supplements to test for. They all end in ACE and you have no idea what they do.
Yeah, I mean, the lists are so long. And then they're like categories and subcategories, and I'm pretty sure half of them are made up.
And it's even worse than that, because when you're looking at, let's say I have 5 bottles in front of me, you're looking at 16 different units, like a FUP or an UP or a SUP, and you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, and also, like, do they work synergistically? Are the ones with the long list better than the ones with the short lists? Are we decreasing, like, the dose of each one so they're actually worse? Help me out.
Okay, so my response is definitely maybe.
Oh, gosh, that's my least favorite response of yours.
Yeah, definitely maybe. So when we're talking about plant enzymes, the first thing to actually talk about is how are they made? And generally speaking, they are made on Aspergillus. So they are made on a fungus or a mushroom. What they do is they grow a bunch of these enzymes on Aspergillus niger, which is a fungus. Niger. Aspergillus niger. I was always told, say it with confidence and it'll go over well. So generally they're on Aspergillus niger. They are often sometimes also grown on soy or barley. And so that's important, because one of the big questions I have is, if I'm histamine intolerant or if I have fungal overgrowth, how does that affect the fact that I'm taking these enzymes? Mm-hmm. And these enzymes are grown on a gluten-containing grain and I'm celiac. How does that affect me taking these enzymes? My response to that is it kind of matters your quality and your company. A lot of different companies will talk about how they go through this extensive purification process where they grow it on the fungus, but then they go through like 12 steps or 15 steps to separate any fungal matter out of it. I do find that my histamine intolerant patients or my celiac patients generally tolerate actually quite well the enzymes, but I don't think that's true 100% of the time.
So can a supplement company after that level of processing claim they're gluten-free?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Wow.
And they often will.
They test it though, and it's less than the parts per million.
Yeah. Huh. Plant-based enzymes also have a much wider therapeutic window. Their window is anywhere from pH 2 to 12. Remember, our plant-based or our animal-based enzymes are between 6.8 and 8. That's a pretty narrow window all around digestion. Yep. The vegetarian ones are from 2 to 12, which means they're doing more things than just breaking down proteins, fats, and carbs.
Okay. But they're not going to break down our body?
They do not, in my experience.
That really freaked me out in that last episode.
Yeah. In my experience, no, they do not, because a lot of them are working on fiber matter, and we are not made of fiber. But I'm getting there. Okay, that's a spoiler alert. Okay. They will begin their process in the stomach. They help break down or digest some of the materials that are in the stomach. And then the other place they work at, which we kind of hinted at last episode, is their brush border. So they help support the villi and the microvilli of the entirety of the small bowel, which is why they have this huge pH range. And they're actually helping the enzyme secretion of the villi and the microvilli.
Okay.
So when we're talking about vegetarian enzymes, we should really be clarifying that there's a lot of different vegan or vegetarian enzymes. Some of them come from fungus. That's going to be a lot of our ACEs, right? Which we're going to talk about. We're going to break down kind of matter by matter.
And just if anyone is confused, ACEs we're talking about is it like cellulase ends in ASE.
Yeah, protease.
Right.
Amylase. So there are enzymes that don't end in ACE?
There absolutely, well, yes, there are.
Bromelain. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
right.
but I think they contain ACEs.
Oh,
right?
Okay, so we have the fungal-based ones, right? Yep. Then we have the tropical fruit-based ones.
Yeah, I like those.
This is papain from papaya,
Yeah.
not an ACE, bromelain from pineapple, and actidin from kiwi. And
Kiwi.
Kiwi's having a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Kiwi's having a big
I don't
moment.
love kiwi. Papaya is so much better than pineapple.
When I was
kiwi.
pregnant, I had a lot of reflux because I was pregnant, and those papaya enzymes were like sugar.
Oh, really?
They were like
They
dessert.
work so well.
chewables.
Yeah, the
love them.
chewables.
Yeah.
And they were cheap,
Yeah, and they taste great.
and they taste great like candy.
Totally.
And I was like, I'm doing something good.
I could go for a kiwi one, though.
I've never tried it.
Yeah. I mean, a kiwi enzyme. I don't know. We should probably make one.
Yeah, that's because we've got time to make a
Yeah.
kiwi enzyme. Yeah, for sure. So the benefits of the vegan ones is you're not worried about religious denominations, right? They're generally very safe in all religions. They work in a variety of pHs. Generally, the sourcing is cleaning. We talked about that theoretical risk from the animal-based ones with having a virus in there.
Yeah.
We don't have that concern with our plant-based ones. And they help the brush border. They work on the brush border, which is drastically different than the animal-based ones. They're also, the reason why I got into this, the reason I was looking is because I'd be sitting with a patient and they'd say, "Oh, I don't tolerate that group of foods. I don't tolerate grains, cruciferous veggies,
Yeah, fruits."
Right, fruits. Like there's this,
true.
like the dairy. Like there's this subset, and I'd be taking the picture, and I'd be like, I know they need support, but I don't know which support they need.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's why I started looking at this, and it's really, we know what these enzymes are doing.
Yep.
Me and the supplement companies, and very soon you guys, if you can make it to the end of the episode. But there are very specific enzymes for very specific things. And they work on different pHs. So the important thing to know about what's different from the vegan enzymes, as opposed to the animal-based ones or the vegetarian ones, is they're working on cellulases. That's important. And a lot of our enzymes that we are breaking down and delineating are based out of the cellulase family. What is cellulase? Do you guys know what cellulase is?
Cellulose?
Cellulose. Cellulose.
I was like, cellulase sounds like an enzyme.
Yeah, sorry. Cellulose. They work on cellulose.
Cellulase for cellulose.
Yes.
Cell walls.
Of what?
Cells.
Which kind? Yeah. Do you have-
Plant?
Just plant
Am I
matter.
right?
They,
Tell me
yes,
I'm right.
it is absolutely. They
You're
are
bringing
working.
me back to like third grade biology here, so
I'm
digging deep.
As a fourth grader, I'm probably bringing you back to ninth grade
Yeah,
biology.
Like fibers and plant material.
Fibers. They are working on fibers and plant materials. I don't know about you guys, but I have a whole ton of patients who cannot tolerate fiber.
Right.
And we are always stuck in this place of, you can't tolerate fiber. It must be
You need
SIFO.
fiber.
Yeah.
It might not be SIFO.
Yeah.
It might
SIBO.
It might be they have a cell and
Brush border enzyme
and
issue.
cellulase. The body does not make cellulases. It does not make. It is not naturally occurring. We get cellulases made by the bacteria within our microbiome. ... That's not doing great in society, or exogenously. So it's important that a lot of these enzymes are focusing on the cellulose.
Yep. Cool. Why do we not make it? How are we supposed to digest this
The
stuff?
bacteria.
Bacteria.
Make it.
Oh, the bacteria.
But
make it.
if the bacteria are not doing well, then
Right, got it. I'm caught up.
Before we go into celluloses and different enzyme types, what I want to kind of do a little touch point on is units.
Okay.
Like, is there a way that I can look at 3 bottles?
Are you going to make me do math?
No, but I am going to give you a little bit of like this is what you're thinking about, like this equals this.
Can I use a calculator?
Are
Are we going to have a test at the end of this?
it's cheating, Rebecca. Do it by hand, manual.
It's not cheating if you get away with it.
That is exactly how I want my children to think. Right there. That's good parenting right there. Okay, proteases are usually going to be in a HUT, a USP, or an SAP.
A
The
HUT.
HUT, H-U-T.
Capital HUT. I've seen that.
USP or SAP. So proteases, so one HUT is about 6.5 USPs. Get your calculator out, Dr. Sand.
My brain has melted.
Get your calculator out. Amylases are going to be in DUs, DU.
Oh, jeez.
1 DU is about 48 USPs. And then lipases are going to be in FIPS, LUs, LU, or FCCLU.
I think you're just making this up at this
I
point.
also would have thought that if I did not have the literature that supported what I'm saying.
Loop-de-loos and doop-de-doos. That's all I just heard. But what I think overall, you can convert them to each other.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can just Google how to convert blood to USP.
That I can do.
Yes.
I can Google.
Just like I often am converting.
ChatGPT. Yeah. You could just ask.
Exactly.
So it's important to know that we do have these conversions, so we can convert how many enzyme matter is converted to a USP, which is standardized for the animal-based enzymes.
There's some sense in this mess of letters.
Yes.
Great.
So are you guys ready to jump into your first enzyme?
Ready.
What is the most utilized supplement enzyme out on the market right now? Do you guys know?
Vino.
Vino. And what is Vino?
It's for beans.
What is the enzyme called?
Alpha galactosidase.
Nice.
Alpha galactosidase. That is absolutely true. And I will just tell you, when I learned about Vino in my clinical practice, game changer. Like,
it works.
Really?
It works so well.
Yep.
The extra strength, I mean, it really works. And Vino, alpha galactosidase, alpha galactosidase, I will say is present in the majority of our vegetarian enzymes because there's so much literature supporting its use.
Yes, and it works.
And it works. So it's working in particular on raffinoses. Raffinoses are found in beans and brassicas. Mm-hmm. It's working on stachioses, which are found in soybeans and other bean varieties. And then it's working on verbicoses, which are in legumes and really highly fibrous foods.
Okay.
So alpha galactidase, the way that I usually think about it is beans and cruciferous veggies.
Yeah.
If the patient is reporting to you, oh, I can't eat a bean, my first thought is, did you cook it properly?
Right.
Refer back to when we obsessively talked about
Not
how we
everyone
cook
wants to go through our cooking process.
I mean,
though.
it is a thing.
Like me, for example.
Yeah.
So you could take Vino instead.
So, do you not tolerate cruciferous veggies?
Yeah.
And I will say,
a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
But we need them. They're good for us.
And they're really great for our microbiome and prebiotics.
Yep.
So maybe while you're treating their overgrowth, you don't have to remove these foods. You could just have them take enzymes.
Exactly. And it's a small enough bottle that you can just carry it with you. I will
Maybe
also
they should make it more discreet than I don't know what current packaging looks like.
Make it a little like credit card shaped package. They have mints like that.
Do you guys think that we're in the wrong field?
I think someone should pay us to like brand their
stuff. I have a feeling we're not that good.
Yeah, maybe we do have bad ideas.
If you look at the data on alpha galactosidase and gas production, like we have fairly large human studies that show there's a decrease in gas production, i.e. bloating.
So you can take that after a meal?
It's got a huge window.
Great.
You can take it after a meal.
How long after?
I mean, you kind of want to have it, like, it's digesting. You want the alpha galactosidase to be working with the food, but it's not like the animal-based proteins where you have to have it attached.
Yeah, and people can stay bloated after a meal for a long time.
So what is the ideal time if someone's going to eat a bunch of Mexican food?
With a meal.
With
a meal.
With meaning, people want specifics here.
With a meal.
Right before,
in the middle.
Specifics
I actually don't have any problems with legumes or crucifers, knock on wood.
Yeah, me neither. Thank God.
But if I eat it, if it's not prepared correctly, I may.
Which basically means you have a huge problem because you can only eat it at your house.
Actually, I don't have trouble at certain restaurants.
If you bring it in a glass container out of your house.
So
theoretically, if someone was eating out Mexican food and they wanted to take some Vino, what, like
in the beginning of the meal, in the middle of the meal, or right after the meal?
So you don't have a preference?
No. Okay. I feel like it's one of those things. I will say, it is one of those enzymes that people notice so drastically, they will figure out what works for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is one that I'm like, wow, the pharmaceutical, the supplement world knows what they're talking about. The data is so damn good.
And I feel like that's one of the biggest reasons people were doing the whole low FOD maps was for those foods, right?
Yes, and you can just supplement with the alpha galactosidase and get the same symptom reduction, but also get the benefit from the fibrous
fiber
food.
and large intestine.
And then the cruciferous veggies, you know what I mean? Like,
sulfur
those are
detox,
huge. Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, I'm a big fan. Okay, let's say theoretically your next patient comes in and they are actually intolerant to grains or carbs.
I had to decide. One time I had a cauliflower that I was going to visit my parents and I didn't want it to get bad. I arrived at home and my brother was there and thought I was crazy because there was a cauliflower in my carry-on.
Oh, God.
I mean,
I didn't want it to get bad. It's a good vegetable for Indian food, especially.
Yeah.
It is delicious.
Anyway, sorry.
It is delicious. You know what cauliflower does really well?
What?
Replaces potatoes for like mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
What's wrong with a mashed potato?
It's very versatile.
I don't tolerate potatoes.
Oh.
I am intolerant to
Very
potatoes.
versatile.
Super
versatile
It
vegetable.
is delicious.
It also makes gnocchi. I've made cauliflower gnocchi.
Yep. Cost has gone up. I found the Whole Foods has the best cost currently. They charge per cauliflower, not per pound.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I didn't know.
We've
Hopefully
got
not
the
everyone's going
resident
to
cauliflower expert over here.
Hopefully no one buys it out now at my local.
Yeah, you shouldn't have said that. We're going to have to edit that out.
It's actually a skill to pick a good, like, you got to...
I do think it is a skill. Yep.
So it doesn't have little bugs. Like, you got to examine. Maybe you guys have been eating them and not know it.
But they're like protein, right?
No.
I'll just take my protein.
I can't handle it, but
Oh,
some
but now I
people...
can't eat it in restaurants either.
It's probably... They've probably washed it, just assume they've washed it off. All
Okay,
right,
are we going to get
moving
to
on.
fruit enzymes?
Yes, but not yet, because the next thing we're going to talk about is grains.
Okay.
What if your theoretical patient walks in and they're telling you, I don't tolerate carbs. I don't tolerate potatoes. I don't tolerate wheat. I don't tolerate rice. I don't tolerate corn.
That is a
I
thing.
also probably don't tolerate some vegetables. Then you're thinking about glucoamylase.
Okay.
Or glycoamylase. Glyco, I don't know. But you can kind of remember it. Amylase, that's the carb ending. Gluco means starch. And that one is the enzyme of choice if you have patients who have a hard time tolerating carbs.
Okay.
That one is generally in AGUs. That's the unit that you'll see, which is called amyloglucosidases.
Oh.
So that's the one if you have a patient who doesn't tolerate carbs,
Yeah.
glucoamylase is your carb of choice.
And have you used that on its own with patients or when we're looking for a product?
I've never seen it on its own, but it's in a lot of the combo products.
You just want it in there.
You want it in there,
Yeah.
yep.
And this is because I have patients where they say, I can eat sweet potatoes, but I can't eat rice. You know, that's a different issue because it's not all starches.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And that's why you're like, the glucoamylases are really starch heavy. They can't eat rice. They can't eat potatoes. Like
Kind of across the board.
Right. And so, that's the support you want to try for them. The most common enzyme deficiency is that of dairy, a lactase deficiency. Lactose intolerance is pretty interesting. So if we are tracking from the beginning, generally babies can break down lactose. That's a thing that's in their microbiome, in their brush border. Starting anywhere from the age of 2 up to adulthood, there is a subset of the population that will lose the ability to make natural endogenous lactases. And so, not natural endogenous lactases.
Yep.
And so you supplement with lactases exogenously if you don't want to cut out dairy.
Yeah.
And it's a lactose issue and not an actual dairy sensitivity, which is unfortunately somewhat common in my patient population.
Absolutely. If there's a lactose intolerance, they're reacting to the sugar.
Yeah.
Giving them the enzyme that breaks down the sugar will correct it. If it's a casein deficiency where they can't break down the protein, giving them the sugar to break down giving them the enzyme to break down the sugar is not going to do anything.
And the way you can sort of tell is if it's a lactase deficiency, they'll get usually loose stools, bloating, that type of thing after eating dairy, but not so much systemic symptoms as much, whereas my patients with dairy sensitivity, which the enzyme will not fix, get more, they don't feel good, they get skin rashes, the typical food sensitivity type issue. So you just have to tease it out to know if the enzyme's going to help you.
So lactase isn't going to allow everyone to eat dairy.
Unfortunately, no.
Bummer.
Okay, so now we've covered cruciferous veggies and beans, we've covered dairy, and we've covered carbs.
Fruit?
The next thing we're going to go actually is cellulases.
Okay.
Cellulases are really interesting because they're these people who can't tolerate vegetable fibers.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one. And it's important to know that the cellulases are not a single enzyme. They're an entire family of enzymes.
That's the one I see.
Yes.
It's just like an endless list.
Yes.
Okay.
They're an entire family of enzymes, and then there are different subsets of the cellulases that work to break down separate subsets of food matter. So maltase is a disaccharide that's actually used to break down
Maltose.
maltase.
Is the enzyme
for maltose.
And actually, it's also maltose. So maltase breaks down maltose into glucose.
Yeah, right.
Maltoses are actually made endogenously in the human, in the mucous membrane. And it's used in particular to break down starches.
Okay.
And so if people are having a hard time breaking down multiple starches, then you're thinking about maltase.
Okay.
Foods that are high in maltose, grains like breads, bagels, processed wheats, crackers, stuff like that. Cornmeal has some. Pies have some. It's kind of like the refined white carbs.
I was going to ask about that because when you talked about the grain ones, I was like, is that the product that's often in like the gluten enzyme?
That's maltose.
Interesting.
Yep.
Maltase is the enzyme for a lot of processed gluten.
Yes.
Stuff. Okay.
And also sweet potatoes, peaches, and pears.
Oh.
So you're looking at your sweet potato people?
Peaches.
Peaches. Yep, they are high in maltoses.
Is there like a thing about stone fruits?
There is a thing, but I don't think it's enzyme based. But there's definitely people who cannot tolerate stone fruit.
Yeah, I struggle with them.
I am so sorry.
No, I mean, I eat them, trust me.
I mean, is it mostly wheat-based grains or other grains
It's a lot of processed grains. It's wheat-based. There's also some in processed corns. It is a product that's added in a lot of times.
Oh, it's added in,
It's added in
That's
a lot of time for
right.
candy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it stabilizes the candy
It's not a
configuration.
part of the grain. That's why it's in processed foods.
Is maltodextrin part of that?
I have no idea. I always think of maltodextrin being made by corn, maltodextrose being made by potato, but I have no idea. I would assume,
Yeah.
but I don't know. That's
Something
a great
in
question.
here will digest it.
Okay, so if you're eating processed foods, maybe think about maltose
Yes.
if that's what's giving you trouble. But sweet potatoes is unprocessed.
Sweet potatoes, peaches, and pears.
Those are the unprocessed.
Those are the unprocessed,
Okay.
yeah. I will also say there is a portion of the population who just is maltase deficient genetically.
Yeah.
But it's real. I mean, we're not going to be seeing a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's not a very large part of the population. Invertase. Invertase is another one of these enzymes that is specifically used. Maltase breaks maltose into glucose. Invertase breaks sucrose into fructose and glucose, right? Invertase is another one that is used a lot in processed food, especially fondant for cake, so to give it its shape, and then candy that has a liquid aspect inside of it because it keeps it doesn't let it form or solidify. It keeps it liquidy.
Wow, it's like an anti-congealer.
Basically, yeah. Yeah. Which is also really gross.
The Werther's Original back in the day. Didn't it have like a liquid caramel inside?
Did it? I'm thinking like Gushers.
I'm thinking Gushers too.
I love Gushers.
Yeah, I feel like they gross me out. I'm sure I had a period in my life that was right around 10 to 12.
But you just bite the top off and then take the juice, you know? No?
Juice is in very loose quotes.
Yeah.
Juice is in very loose quotes. So you can absolutely have sucrose intolerance genetically, but often sucrose intolerances will form secondary to something else going on, like IBS, like IBD, like SIBO, that can also cause it. These people who don't tolerate invertases are generally lean, and they literally will not eat sugar because it makes them feel so bad.
Wow.
What about other forms of sugar? Like, this isn't related. Go ahead.
It really depends on what's the structure of the sugar.
Okay.
Like is it a
coconut
sucrose?
sugar?
Well, for me, it's more like, is it a sucrose? Is it a maltose? Is it a glucose?
Okay.
Is it a fructose? Like those things are going to have different effects.
And the invertase is primarily a problem with
Sucrose.
Okay.
Yep. And then there's Dr. Sand.
I'm ready.
Pectinases.
Fruit.
Pectinases.
Finally.
Pectinases. These people don't tolerate fruit.
Yeah.
They don't tolerate fruit. They don't tolerate fruit jams.
Yeah.
So you give them something that helps break down that pectin layer.
Yeah.
Pectinases.
And that's it, just pectinases.
Outside,
I've been waiting
this is
whole
different
time.
from someone who has fructose intolerance.
Very different from fructose
Yeah.
intolerance. Yeah, this is
Which
pectin.
also would cause intolerance to fruit.
Yes.
Right. So maybe add both in there.
Xylin is the most common component of a plant cell wall of cellulose,
Yeah.
right? So this is like you're trying the cellulases, and this is one in particular that you play around with to see if it's a little bit more potent,
Okay.
because they might be reacting to cellulose, which is the number one fiber in plants, or they might be reacting to the xylins, which is the number two fiber in plants.
And there's no testing for any of this,
No,
right?
nope.
Like you're just shooting in the dark.
Yep. So with xylin intolerance, one of the ways that you can quote unquote test is you give them XOS, which is xylo-oligosaccharides, and they do not tolerate it.
Oh.
Different from FOS.
Different from FOS, which
And
is fructose, and GOS, right? But that if you want to test, as opposed to just throwing spaghetti against the wall, which, a lot of these products are combo products.
Right.
And so you want to throw some of the combo products with higher doses of certain enzymes, and that's kind of how I do it. That's how I test. And then my ultimate favorite one, do you guys want to know what my ultimate favorite one is?
Your favorite plant-based enzyme?
My favorite plant-based enzyme is hemicellulose.
Okay.
This is, hemicellulase. Why is it my favorite? Because there's a bunch of data that says that hemicellulase, this enzyme in particular, helps break down candida cell walls to act as an anti-biofilm for fungus agents. So in my biofilm protocol, I'm using a ton of hemicellulase.
Okay, was that in vitro studies? Do you know?
No, it was human-based studies.
Was it?
Hold on. That's a great question.
Are you dosing it with food or on an empty stomach?
No, it was absolutely in vitro. I'm dosing it with antifungals.
On an empty stomach?
It doesn't matter. I could care less.
It has to be I'm pretty sure it has to be an empty stomach.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to digest your food, no?
Hemicellulase is it's not so strong. I'm getting good efficacy dosing it with at the same time they take their antifungals. And I'm using about 2,000, I think it's USPs.
Is there a product that's just that?
No, but there is a product that has a high amount of that. And that's kind of how I chose it. There's actually a couple of products that have a pretty high amount of hemicellulase.
Yeah, cool.
But this is now in my antifungal biofilm protocol.
Right on.
So I'm a big fan of hemicellulase.
Yeah.
So you're using hemicellulase with your prescription biofilm
And my herbal biofilms.
treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you're combining that with botanicals that are antimicrobial.
I am. It's a big treatment when I go after fungus.
That's a lot
This
of
would
pills.
not be for a minimalist patient.
No,
This
it's
would
not.
be for someone who's ready to go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely not a minimalist prescription.
Yep.
So, here's the take home on enzymes. You have to try different ones. Different enzymes are breaking down different foods. And if the animal-based don't work, try the vegetarian. If the vegetarian don't work, try the animal-based.
Yeah.
Try different doses. Like this is more art than science.
But I mean, for EPI, it's definitely the animal-based ones that are studied.
For sure. And sometimes they need more support, like what they get in the vegetarian-based ones.
Do you use them in combination?
Sometimes.
So if it's an EPI patient who also has trouble with certain carbohydrates, that would be a good time to,
Exactly.
or beans or this or that.
Exactly.
And then you have them with like some type of dish near their meal where they're like, okay, I'm going to take this one.
I mean, I usually
3 bites in.
you can usually buy the vegan enzymes with a bunch of different ones in there, but a smaller amount.
Right.
So you just see if they work. It literally is, does this product work? Because
Right.
every one of these products are going to have a slightly different formulation that are trying to gear towards different things.
Right.
They're trying to cover most of it, but they're really geared towards one thing or the other. And I haven't even talked about like the gluten-based ones.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so we have lots of options.
Totally.
And sometimes you have to play around. But when we're taking our intake, we should be listening to foods that trigger them.
Yeah, I always
and
ask.
that really
And a
help
lot
us.
of people know, like, it's absolutely just brassicas,
Yep.
and like some types of fruit or something
Yep.
like that.
So
And that can help us narrow it down.
Okay. Yeah. So to summarize, try to identify which food groups are bothering someone. Crucifers, specifically with legumes usually, or starches, or fruit, or lactose would be the main ones, or fiber in general, right?
Fiber in general.
Yes, those are that is absolutely right. You nailed it.
And then we have a lot more freedom in dosing with these because there's a bigger pH range.
And they're working on the brush border
Yeah.
and not just the food.
And no risk of viruses.
And so typically if it's legumes, crucifers, you could use something like Beano versus all the others, you typically are going to get a combo product.
Or if it's like dairy, if
Except
it's
for
lactose,
right.
then you can get a lactase.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yep, and if not, you're going to probably get a combo product. And hemicellulase for fungal overload.
I don't know if I'm convinced.
Yeah.
Was it
We got
one
a
in vitro
skeptic here.
study? We'll have to look back.
I'll have to look back.
I can't say. I used to try that with people. There was a product that was marketed specifically for it, but perhaps it works better in combination with your full protocol than as a solo agent, which is how they were marketing it.
Yeah, it is definitely
Part of the
it
whole
was
thing.
in vitro. It was definitely an in vitro.
But
study.
it may work. I feel like it may work better in combo as opposed to how it initially was recommended for patients.
Yeah.
All right.
Brilliant episode.
Thank you.
Learned
Great
a lot.
info.
Thank you for breaking that down. Literally.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.
If you like this episode, please subscribe and don't forget to rate and review us to help spread the turd nerd word.
Thanks for joining us today. Stay tuned. We release episodes every 2 weeks.